So general insurance going forward is not going to be anymore on just physical assets. Insurance is always a matter or subject to solicitation. The insurance company are definitely going to leverage on the artificial intelligence, data analytics, and the upcoming technologies that can make them go look into the insights and start building up the entire organization. Good morning and welcome to the fifth session on principles of general insurance. And in this, we are going to talk about the recent innovations that have happened in the field of insurance. So moving forward, let us try to understand what is the innovation that has been happening in this sector. I've always told you, insurance is the most emerging sector that you can think about or that you can talk about. But then let us try to understand where is this sector leading to. Now, starting here, insurance is the core driver of this change for many of the companies. Why? Because it is the most valuable. Companies are not dependent on physical assets for their market value. Now, you need to understand here that most of the biggest companies in the world today are not just worried about the physical assets. So general insurance going forward is not going to be anymore on just physical assets. General insurance is not going to be anymore about the same land, building, machinery, plant, and other factors. But it is going to move towards on a different factor called as the intangible asset, such as intellectual property, data, brand, and reputation. Now, let me give you a small example here and try to make you understand how the general insurance factor is moving forward. If you take the company Amazon, Amazon practically does not own any of the goods. They don't have their own truck, they don't have their own machinery, they don't have their own plants, or they don't run their own manufacturing units. They are outsourcing every of their operation to some or the other company in the world. But what does Amazon own? Amazon owns a brand. Amazon is a brand by itself. It's one of the most reputed brands. They are involved in terms of cloud services. They are involved in terms of world's best logistic services. They are also involved in something called as e-commerce and in supply chain management. But all these factors, as I am talking to you today, these factors are only intangible. They cannot be seen, they cannot be touched, but they can be only experienced. So that is where what is happening here is that the physical property or the assets that were once considered to be the most valuable asset for any company in the world is slightly getting deviated towards the intangible factor. So this is something really great that we have to see together in terms of innovation. Now, if you see a company like Reliance, for example, now Reliance's biggest asset might be the oil fields, the petroleum exploration, and so many other factors. But then what is Reliance actually now moving into? They are moving into services business. So their ideology is to protect the technology. With the 5G advent happening, their insurance is more protective towards the intellectual property rights. They don't want to give away their fiber technology. They don't want to give away their innovation in terms of e-commerce to anybody. So their focus is getting more towards their patents, their rights, the intellectual thought process. They are not really worried about the plant machinery and the manufacturing output altogether. Today, they are in a process of rebuilding the industry altogether with a different mindset. So that is how the insurance sector is really coming into picture. Now, let me go forward and try to explain you more about the different factors that have taken place. Now, what are the challenges ahead? Let us try to understand this factor. Now, the challenges ahead for the insurers is that they are still struggling to find solutions that address their clients' need to protect the value of their brands, as we were talking about reputation and intellectual property. So let us now try to understand the concept from an insurer standpoint. Let's say that I am a company like GIC or Swiss Re or I'm a company like you can probably talk about the AIG, American International Group, or HDFC Ergo, whichever insurance company I'm representing, my biggest challenge today is that how do I start protecting the intellectual property of a company? Because for a general insurance, the major thing, as we have spoken about it in the previous sessions and class, is all about the material fact. If I don't have the physical asset in place, I don't have something tangible in place, then only we can talk about the growth. Then only we can talk about these factors. But then what we try to see here is that we are only trying to place ourselves in a position where we want to change our ideology, where we have to go further. We have to make the clients understand that we are changing our technology to protect your brand, your intellectual properties, and your thoughts altogether. So the challenge for an insurer is that his mindset needs to be changed. His mindset needs to move towards that particular position, that particular situation altogether, where he will be able to go further, tell everybody clearly about this factor that yes, this is what he's intending to do, this is what he means to take up altogether. So this is going to be really, really interesting for each one of us to understand and move forward. So that's why I'm going to say here very, very clearly on this factor that when we are looking at the challenge for the insurance company, the traditional outlook is going outside. They have to rebuild their technology. They have to rebuild their methodology in such a way that they can find something which will be able to help their clients to rebuild the system altogether. Now, there are many companies which I would like to mention here as a part of the example. Why? Because these companies are redefining the insurance space altogether. Now, let me tell you about a company called as ACO, which is now available as an insurance app in your mobile phone. What is ACO into? ACO is actually providing insurance for motor vehicles altogether. But look at the technology adaptation, what they have done as a general insurer. They don't want to be a company which will typically work on the pen and paper and again come back and tell you about how a process, how a claim is done, what is an underwriting altogether. ACO has moved itself in a very, very swift manner as a technologically enabled insurer, and it goes back and tells the people very, very clearly that probably you can get the insurance done in the fastest manner possible. Now, what is the reason behind it? If you start understanding this challenging factor of innovation, you will be able to appreciate that customers today don't want to waste their time in documentation. They are no more interested in going through the step-by-step process, trying to understand what is happening in the system. All they want is a one-stop solution. Moment if I download the app and I fill in my details, I give you my assets in terms of information to you. You should be able to protect it, guide it, and take me forward at the time of insurance is needed. So that is why I always say that this is going to be one of the most fantastic feature that we can ever talk about. Today, we are talking about insurance at the peak level as far as possible. This is definitely going to be one of the best as far as possible in terms of innovation. So let's going forward. Those who are already finding their business models threatened by the rise of insurance technologies and the innovative factor of the new entrants, they are aiming to help and protect these increasingly important tangible assets. In the intangible asset space, I would really like to talk about this factor that there are many companies who have now started moving towards that intangible asset formulation. Now, let's even take for an example a company like Apple. Apple is a company, apart from being one of the leader in terms of mobile phone technology, the phones which they manufacture and the electronic gadgets. But what is Apple's real strength is innovation. Now, innovation is something which you cannot see through your eyes. Innovation is not something which you can just touch and feel. But innovation is something which you can only experience. So innovation as their main asset is an intangible one. So Apple does not want today the same general insurance companies coming back and telling them what needs to be done. They are looking out for insurers who can come back and protect their asset in terms of the intellectual knowledge what they have gathered. So their solution, their ideas are more towards those people who can understand the wavelength of their technology, who can understand the progress of their company altogether. So that is why I would definitely like and go ahead and recommend on these factors, saying that this is how we are trying to build a system. This is how we are trying to position ourselves as the best companies in the world. So this is why I would definitely say that this is the kind of innovation that is coming on into the sector. This is the most challenging phase for the insurance business altogether. No more the insurance industry is going to sit back, relax and enjoy about whatever that has been going on in terms of the general assets and the value. But then insurance companies are going to take a different dimension altogether. They are going to move forward in such a manner with a lot of dynamism coming inside that they are going to become as creative as far as possible. But then I would also like to say it is also an opportunity to redefine the insurance industry's value proportion. So this is the time for this emerging sector to come back and tell to this world that the insurance sector is going to have a different definition altogether. No more we are just going to stick by saying that the premium, customer value, again redefining those legal laws and set, but we are going to get into a more interactive format. We are going to understand the client, take him into confidence and rebuild the insurance industry in such a way that they are going to go hand in hand towards progress and development. Now, moving forward, I would also like to talk about how do we deal with the challenge. Now, you have a challenge that we understand most of the insurance companies are facing a challenge as how are we going to become more innovative. Now, the first thing that we are going to talk about in delivering this challenge is that delivering a service that prioritizes risk prevention will require a major shift in how the industry has traditionally viewed the value proportion. Let me try to explain this statement to you. Until now, insurance is always a matter or subject to solicitation. That is what it's always been told and that's what has been projected. In a general insurance, the major factor that drives the company is the kind of risk in which it gets involved. Now, if you look at general insurance company in India, their major insurance thrust is only on the aviation sector. Now, if the aviation sector fails together, as a sector itself, as an industry belt itself, the entire GIC company will come under a severe loss because they have to manage the claims and the funds that they have been going about. But then let's understand if the risk involved in that particular sector can be mitigated and the sector can be made better for the business coming in future. That means for the insurance company also, it is on an advantageous position. So that's what insurers are trying to do because they want to understand what is the value proposition in which we are working towards the client. Now, when I talk about a marine industry or when I talk about an agricultural industry or when I talk about a motor car industry or an insurance towards it or a building or let's talk about some fire, theft, whichever kind of insurance, the value proportion that an insurance is trying to give you is primarily based on the risk factor. So if the risk mitigation is on the positive angle as far as possible, and we can go ahead and reduce the risk, then it is always going to be a win-win situation for the insurance company. So that's where I would really go ahead and appreciate on this factor that delivering this challenge is going to be more from understanding the risk perspective of every single industry that these companies are going to involve themselves. Following by which, insurers would also need to rethink the role they play, the value they can bring into clients, for example, and clearly leverage the data to reduce the risk and prevent losses. Now, this is where I would like to combine the insurance industry with a new sector called as data analytics. Now, this is a very, very emerging sector. Probably you would have heard about it in all of your newspapers, social media, and all those factors combined. Now, this data analytics, artificial intelligence, or a machine learning, all these new emerging courses are definitely going to pave a new path for the insurance industry. Why? Now, every insurance industry wants to mitigate into the sector, try to understand how we can add value to the client. So in an insurance company, rather than just being a backup, if they could become a consultant, go to the clients directly, start telling them how to avoid risk, how to mitigate the risk, how to prevent the business from getting into a loss. How is that possible? By using the combination of the data analytics, by getting the best data as far as possible. If they can combine that leverage and start talking about it, then automatically, let me tell you, this is going to be a super duper success altogether. We can definitely go ahead and make this a very big success, a very big combination altogether. So that's why I am trying to make myself even more confident by saying that the insurance company are definitely going to leverage on the artificial intelligence, data analytics, and the upcoming technologies that can make them go look into the insights and start building up the entire organization. So this is going to be a superb combination, and going forward, I will definitely say that this sector is going to provide a whole lot of opportunities for youngsters as well as the industry altogether. This is one untapped industry altogether, and India is definitely going to be a forefront runner in terms of the general insurance. Moving forward, I would also like to say in the challenges factor, sometimes the customer expectations that the insurer's products and service will work for them in a personalized data-centric way. Commercial insurance or organizations continue to sell annual products on generalized data trend. Now, this is going to go away. This is where I am trying to bring in something which is even more critical for each one of us to understand today. Now, let me give you a very simple example here. If I go to a JioMart or if I go to a Big Bazaar today, probably the Big Bazaar or the JioMart wants to understand me as an individual customer. He understands my buying pattern. He understands where do I spend most of my money. He understands my trust position. He understands what is the challenge that is going at the top of my mind when I'm going to buy. So similarly, for the insurance company, they are no more going to go back to their clients with the general data. They can't go with a generalized notion in the mind that, yes, I know your industry, so I'm just going to propose you a value. They do not want in that manner. Who does not want? The client does not want it in that manner, because the client, whoever is that person, he wants the insurance company to understand and then come with a data-centric approach to him. That is where things are changing in a very, very rapid manner altogether. Because no more the client is just going to accept you and tell you, okay, it's fine, you are just giving me a product. I will just take the product and I will start moving forward. No, that is not the intention of the companies at all. The intention of the company is to go forward, create a specific tailor-made product so that they will be able to understand and they will be able to make a deal as per the requirement. So that is where insurance companies need to shift the thinking modality altogether. So that's where the challenge is yet to come, and we are looking into it. Because of this, the core insurance product is designed to cover generalized representation of likely risk rather than the specific risks of the policyholder who is actually facing. And this is quite common. I would also like to show you a case study in the coming slides where you would be able to understand it better. But then going here with this point, most of the time the companies just assume certain things and they go forward and propose a value to the client. The client understands and accepts it at that moment, but then once he goes into the insurance factor, when he goes for the claim, when he goes for the actual scenario, he wants the company to understand that this is not just the risk which I'm talking about. The actual risk is even more detailed. It's even more challenging than what you have thought about. So, and in the long run, what the clients exactly want is that the insurance company to come forward, sit with them, understand the entire organizational factor, and then go in for an insurance. Now, if I'm running a business which is concentrated completely on data management. Like, let's say I'm talking about Oracle as a company. Oracle is a company which is known for the worldwide leader in terms of database solutions. Now, the Oracle's major strength and asset lies in the power of information. They hold huge amount of database. So if the company has not been able to understand that of the client position, they will not be able to give them a proper insurance solution. Moving forward. Now, as I was trying to tell about a case study here, let us look at this case study. I'm not going to name the company here. One of the world's leading shipping companies to provide insurers with usable real-time data regarding the position and course of a ship, allowing real-time accurate pricing of premiums and automation of endorsement. Now, this company had actually given the insurance company a real-time data of how a shipping moves, what are all the challenges that are involved in the ship, and they also went ahead in terms of pricing and automation of the endorsement. Now, this dynamic pricing structure allowed the shipping company to accurately pass the cost factor on the freight forwarders and the shipping owners whose risk it manages. Now, that is a very, very important concept for each one of us to know. Why? Because we have believed in this, that at any given point of time, this is going to be a very, very crucial factor for each one of us to understand and take it forward. So what we have been doing here is that we have been trying to build a system, or rather we have been trying to understand the dynamics of the company on a real-time basis, and we have been able to price the premium accordingly. So what is happening here is that now the insurance company is able to understand what is really happening on the field, on the scenario, and let us place the premium based on that. Because in the earlier case, just based on an insurance company, if I'm just going to launch a product and give it to you on a generalized mode and the company accepts it, it's fine. But then when you come to know the real risk factor, the premiums may vary. So this is one of the live examples which I want to share with you, where I'm giving you the importance of data analytics combining together with insurance to provide you the real-time situation of how a premium is accessed and how a premium is going to be given. Now, moving forward, shifting the perceptions about the value of insurance. This is very, very important. This improved level of service will require insurers to expand their perspective of industry's broader business ecosystem. Very much true. That is highly needed, including who counts as a player and their role within it. Now, this becomes also important here because you need to understand what value proportions that we are trying to talk about. They must also identify how they can strengthen the value chain given the existing technological and organizational capabilities. Now, that becomes highly important for all of us here to understand and take it forward. Why? Because if you look here, first of all, we need to identify the value chain, and then we have to go for a value proportion that can be useful for them and that can be useful for the system also. So this is where we are trying to come up with something even more important, even more realistic altogether. We don't want the system to just accept and go forward. We just want the system to be as dynamic as possible so that we can take the client into confidence and build the new system. So the new ecosystem should enable more tailored service offerings. That's what we were talking about, that focuses on the client-specific organizational need, which means the insurers need to specialize in the value what they deliver. So no more the insurance companies are just going to come with a paper pamphlet, just going to talk about their insurance, the same old dialogues, and trying to pacify the client. But on the other hand, they are going to make this business as serious as possible. That means to say that they are going to get into a tailor-made situation. They are going to make this business even more dynamic and interactive as far as possible. Now, moving forward, Technological transformation. So the technological transformation that we are trying to talk about is the improvement. Industry will need to go through a cultural transformation. So we are not just going to have people on the field anymore trying to talk about the insurance products, going to door, knocking on the clients, saying that we are selling insurance, but rather we want the people to become more open-minded and stay more relevant to the situation. So the people need to be more educated. They need to be thought about what is happening around them, what is the environmental challenges that are being represented, how the situation is responding, and what we need to do as a company so that the client is able to stick back to us, understand the situation, build a dynamic portfolio, and carry on with it. Now, technological transfer is not just about using apps and method, but it's about building a relation using your technology. So your technology needs to be friendly, it needs to be understandable, accessible in nature, so that when the client is able to undergo that process, he understands that the insurance company has taken some time, especially for him, and created that app. So that's where the transformation has to be on both sides as far as possible. Moving forward, the innovating factor that we are talking about insurance now, the real innovation is that let's try to reimagine how truly deliver value for customers. Insurers have an opportunity to find out a growing wave of innovation that has already started to reshape the industry. Now, this is the time for it, especially after the pandemic that has taken place in the last 6 months. All the bad things that have taken place in the world. This is the time when all the insurance companies are coming back and trying to understand what is something that new we can do in order to rebuild this industry. What is the new offering that we can give to the customers so that they feel happy about it, they feel really interested about it, and they will start rebuilding the system altogether. So this is going to be a very, very interesting journey as far as possible. We are not just going to go back, sit back, relax and think about it, but we are going to go into the system, rebuild the entire process and start taking it forward as far as possible. So this is going to be a very, very interesting factor, a very, very challenging system that we are going to talk about. So let's try to understand this. Let's try to take it forward and rebuild it. So when you look at the new value exchange that emerges, everyone will be able to get the best out of the industry, take it forward, build the system and move forward together as an insurer. So this is going to be really interesting for each one of us to know. And the other thing which I also want to say here is that when you look at the insurance ecosystem until now, most of the people were thinking that insurance is a business, is very boring, it's very dull, it's all about sales. You have to go every time, keep talking to people, tell them clearly that, the same dialogue again and again, please buy the insurance, insurance is for your benefit. Now we are going to go back from that dialogue. Rather, we are going to make the clients come into the system, try to understand them, build a database of the client, try to modify the technology, try to make them more adaptive and interesting as far as possible so that they will be able to understand what is happening in the scenario. Now, moving forward, with this, we come to the conclusion of this session. I hope and believe that the session was interesting, informative and useful. In the next session, we are going to see some of the new frontiers. How is the organization and structure of the insurance industry, especially about the general insurance in detail. Until then, stay tuned, stay blessed and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me on this wonderful session.